Welcome back to On to the Next Thing. I'm Michael, your host, and this is going to be a rapid-fire recap of all the things that I wanted to go over in the past 2 months but haven't been able to get around to. I would say this is for a variety of reasons, but real reason is just being busy, having a life that's not the podcast, and also being bogged down in graduate school work that I'm actually trying to take seriously, which is something that I'm not used to doing and takes up a lot of my time. And so I had to put the podcast on hold for a while. I apologize. Ugh, Jesus. But we're going to get back on track eventually. Maybe not now because I have another accelerated course to do for a couple weeks, but that's accelerated. So it's going to be done in like 6 weeks, and then I'll be actually back on track. And I think I should actually be able to fit in some other content in between now and then. But for now, we're going to have this where I'm going to recap some of the literature that I've been reading over the past couple months, as well as I don't know, there's possibly, I think I've added at least like 120 songs to my playlist, and so I'm going to try and go through all of those artists. Hopefully I can figure out which I haven't repeated before. But maybe I'll try and do like the artist and then like just kind of a mock-up of the genre. And then also maybe something about some of my troubles attempting to find the other books that I have on my reading list and one of my sources for that sort of thing. But before we do that, we got to get into the bird news. 2 months of no bird news. I wonder what the news has for us in store right now. I bet there's been some major developments in the world of birds. Nope. It's just bird watchers, migrations, another pop science article about windmills, but we did actually manage to find a couple things. So we have, yep. All right. So this is from KTTC, which I don't know what that means. And below it, there's a little banner below their banner that says red flag warning is in effect. I don't know what that means. I think that's something to do with like the ocean or something. Don't go swimming right now. As of May 12th, 2026, which is today's date that I forgot to say in the intro. I'm a little bit rusty. It's okay. Don't worry about it. This is in Rochester, Minnesota, which I guess it's on the lakes a little bit. So I guess it's a red flag warning for the lakes. Or it's just a completely unrelated banner. Anyway, this article is by Ryder Blair. It's called Bird Experts Ask Residents to Turn Off Lights During Peak Migration. Rochester, Minnesota. Local bird experts are asking people to take part in the Lights Out program by turning off unnecessary lights Tuesday night between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., as large numbers of birds are expected to travel overnight throughout the region. The Zumbro Valley Audubon Society says migrating birds rely on seeing the stars for navigation, according to outreach coordinator Joel Dunnett. What Lights Out is about is when birds are migrating, they're relying on seeing the stars. And if there's a lot of light coming up from the ground, they can't see and they get confused. They waste energy, they come to the ground maybe in not good places, Dunnett said. The Audubon Society says even small changes like turning off porch lights, closing blinds, or dimming indoor lighting can make a difference. Bright city lights can confuse migrating birds, pulling them off course and into dangerous areas. Nearly 1 billion birds die each year in the U.S. from window strikes. Window strikes, people. I'm telling you, there's a lot of recurring themes in bird news. Window strikes, definitely one of them. Get those fucking bumps that Florida University was making to make birds not want to fly straight into your windows. Quote, we'd like to have less night lighting that shines upward and it'll help the birds get by, and because they're migrating all the way from South America, Central America, Mexico, all the way up to the Northwoods, most of them, Dunnett said. Dunnett doesn't seem, unless I'm misreading it, Dunnett doesn't really seem to speak in complete sentences, so I apologize for the general illiteracy of either me or this guy. An estimated 21.1 million birds are currently in flight across the U.S., according to live migration maps. Migration doesn't occur evenly. It depends on the weather. They're very weather dependent. If there's a strong north wind, they may not migrate. If there's storms, they won't migrate. They migrate at night because it's cooler, there's less wind, and they can avoid predators, Dunnett said. Tonight is expected to be especially active for migration in the area due to changing winds and last night's storms. More than 46 species were spotted by birders in Rochester's Kutski Park Tuesday morning, with warblers being among the most common seen. And that's the end of that article. Cool. So turn your lights off, and I guess especially if you're in the Midwest. I don't know if other regions are talking about that. It seems to be mainly in the Midwest right now because they're getting a lot of birds coming up through the central part of the country. But yeah, I don't know. Probably just keep some of those lights off at night in general because waste electricity, and you're going to need it. All right, next article. Vulture swarms in North Carolina neighborhood escalates to town lawsuit against couple in Hillsborough. I should have led with this one. I forgot that I had this one in the chamber here. This is from 11 ABC, and it's written by Tom George. Hillsborough, North Carolina, WTVD. Complaints about swarms of vultures in one Hillsborough neighborhood have escalated into a lawsuit, with town officials accusing a couple of attracting the birds to their street. People who live on Queen Street say the problem has persisted for years. Quote, "They're a little spooky, to be frank," Holden Richards said. "Everybody thinks they're ugly and stuff, but they're not good neighbors," he said. Once again, the insane sentences coming out of Middle America, or I guess this is really just Southeast America, is crazy. "Everybody thinks they're ugly and stuff, but they're actually not good neighbors, too." I guess he's saying, like, oh, everyone's worried about them being ugly, but to me, it's actually that they're not good neighbors. And actually, I still don't know if you're talking about the vultures or about the actual neighbors who are getting hit with the fucking lawsuit. Everyone thinks they're ugly and stuff, but they're also shit-ass neighbors as well. Thanks, Richards. According to Richards, the birds have caused property damage and create sanitation issues. They tend to mark their territory with their excrement, and they have long, sharp talons, so they're not great animals to have perching on your house, Richards said. He said he's had to repair his roof after seeing the birds pull tiles loose. Holy fuck. Why would they be pulling tiles loose? "I watched them pick tiles off my neighbor's roof, and then tiles came off my roof and in my yard, so I have a feeling that's exactly where they came from," he said. We got a real detective on our hands. Photos submitted to the court show dozens of vultures circling a home Richards believes belongs to neighbors Ken and Linda Ostrand. He said complaints to the town have been widespread. Quote, "I'm pretty sure every one of my neighbors is probably called," Richards said. The town of Hillsborough has since filed a complaint against the Ostrands, alleging they fed scraps to the vultures and even named some of the birds. The town is seeking an injunction to stop the alleged feeding, which officials say has created a safety concern. Linda Ostrand disputes the accusations, saying she is being unfairly targeted and that the birds were present before she moved into the neighborhood. Quote, it's ridiculous is what it is, but I guess when somebody complains, they have to respond to it," she said. All right, that was 3 sentences. But I guess, period, when somebody complains, period, they have to respond to it, period. After initial complaints, the town updated its ordinance to restrict feeding wildlife beyond traditional bird feeders. And they passed a rule. They said you can't feed birds unless the feeders are hung 5 feet off the ground. So nobody in town anymore is allowed to throw seed on the ground, Ostrand said. In a response filed in the court, the Ostrands denied feeding the vultures and argued that the presence of birds alone does not prove their involvement. Quote, "Any more than tennis shoes demonstrate the wearer is Wimbledon player." It's good to be back. It's good to be back in bird news. Ostrand, a longtime wildlife rescuer, also defended the role vultures play in the ecosystem. Quote, "If people didn't have vultures around, you would hear them screaming bloody murder about the animals that have been hit by cars because they are nature's garbage disposal," she said. As the dispute moves forward, neighbors, town officials, and the Ostrands now await the outcome in court. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Tell the vultures that this is a no-feed zone. I just don't know," she said. I don't know if this is the editor's fault or if this is Miss Ostrand's fault. That's terrible. This is terrible sentence structure. I don't know, man. No court date has been scheduled in Orange County for the civil case, and town officials declined to comment to ABC 11 while the litigation is ongoing. Report a correction or typo. I don't know. Maybe I should report the Austrans to your editor. Or I should report your editor to themselves. Anyway, all right. Everything else is all just. There is a hantavirus one. Birders push back on hantavirus fears tied to Argentine city. Some guides and locals have expressed doubt that birding tourism in Ushuaia played a role in the outbreak that killed 3 passengers on a South Atlantic cruise ship. This is from NBC. And they have a picture of a Magellanic woodpecker. I assume named after Ferdinand Magellan. This is by Dennis Romero and Marlene Lenthang. Bird watching. Okay, all right, I'll read through it a little bit. The hantavirus outbreak on a cruise that departed from Argentina last month has cast an unwelcome spotlight on Tierra del Fuego, a region well known for its biodiversity and bird watching, authorities and guides say. Now, bird watching may be at the epicenter of the outbreak on board the MV Hondius, in which 3 people have died and 5 others were sickened. The World Health Organization has said the first person with a confirmed case may have been exposed to rodents, which can carry hantavirus while on a birding trip. Okay, that seems like the end of the... Is that the end of the article? Oh, continue reading. Thanks, NBC. The furthest reaches of the South American continent are a strong draw for bird watchers, National Geographic author and birding expert Noah Stryker said. South America has more bird species than any other continent, and Argentina is a superb destination for birders, he said by email. Ushuaia is surrounded by beautiful beach forests and snow-capped mountains, with Tierra del Fuego National Park just outside the city. Birders hope to find Magellanic woodpeckers and white-bellied seed snipes there, among other specialties. The first case is a Dutch man and his wife, who died nearly 3 weeks after him, had spent more than 3 months traveling through Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay on a birding trip before they boarded the Hondius in Ushuaia, Argentina's southernmost city, on April 1st, according to the WHO. That trip included visits to sites where the species of rat that is known to carry Andes virus is present, WHO Director General Tedros World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said at a Thursday briefing. I hope I never have to read that name again. Last week, the Associated Press, citing 2 Argentine officials investigating the origins of the outbreak, said the government's leading hypothesis was that the couple contracted the virus while birdwatching in Ushuaia and may have been exposed to rodents at the city's landfill. The landfill theory made some birding enthusiasts uneasy and prompted some authorities, locals, and others to defend Ushuaia, a city of nearly 85,000 that draws tourists to its Antarctic cruise ships and abundant watch-worthy bird population. Now, okay, I did hear about this at one point. It was very strange that they were just going bird watching in a fucking landfill. But I guess, okay, here's their explanation for it. Esteban Daniels, a birding guide in Ushuaia, said the landfill attracts eye-catching birds. The white-throated caracara is a scavenger that finds easy meals there, not the hantavirus. Okay, well, I mean, I don't think the hantavirus is directly attracted to dumps, but I think the idea is that it's rodents, Esteban, okay? Quote, I have been visiting the rubbish dump with bird watchers for at least 25 years, he said by email. We always observe from outside the perimeter with binoculars and spotting scopes. We aren't allowed to enter the site, which has a high fence around and security at the entrance. Quote, there isn't really any need to go in, as we can see the white-throated caracara, other caracaras, gulls, and occasionally the Andean condor from the side street, he added. More scavengers, more vultures. Coincidence? Perhaps. Daniel said that he guided some of the ship's birding passengers at the landfill in the days before it left for multiple South Atlantic destinations, though he said that the couple that died was not among them. None of them showed any signs of being infected, he said by text. Smear campaign. Hantavirus is typically contracted through contact with the urine droppings or saliva of infected rodents like rats and mice. The Andes variant of hantavirus is the only strain that can be transmitted from person to person, though health officials have reiterated that it is not COVID and does not spread like the pandemic virus. It's carried by the long-tailed pygmy rice rat, which is more common in the points north of Ushuaia, experts have said. The virus, identified on board the Hondius, is near identical to the strain that recently caused a well-documented human-to-human outbreak in Argentina in 2018 and 19, Spiros Lytras, an evolutionary virologist, said by email. That outbreak on Patagonia in Argentina's Chubut province petered out after 34 documented infections and 11 deaths. On Friday, Juan Petrina, the province of Tierra del Fuego's Environmental Health and Epidemiology Director, showed reporters a graph of hantavirus cases in the area and said that it was unlikely that the first cases originated there. I've included data starting in 2000, but I can go back as far as you like, Petrina said at the news conference. There continues to be 0 cases of hantavirus in our province. The scarcity of this rodent, combined with the province's historical health status and the short period of time during which this couple may have been exposed to these rodents, greatly reduces the likelihood that the infection occurred here, Petrina said. I believe we are facing a smear campaign against this destination, he added. Attempts to contact the city of Ushuaia by email were not successful. All right, they have a million more paragraphs and a million more ads, and so I'm not going to read all of that. Let me just read, I'll read the last line. The last 2 lines. Daniels, the local bird guide, said he did not expect the outbreak would dissuade bird-watching tourists, most of whom come from North America and Europe, from visiting. Quote, it is a specific type of niche tourism that is well known, and many of the birders who arrive are well informed, he said by text. So, I don't know. I don't know exactly what to think. Because on the one hand, I mean, it's probably not a fucking smear campaign that's intentional. It just seems like the most likely thing since you're taking people birding in a fucking dump in unregulated Argentina. Like, I mean, if they're... Listen, the last place that I'm going to... Like, the first place, actually, that I'm going to expect there to be an issue with exposure to rodent feces and droppings would be near a dump in fucking Malays, Argentina, okay? Just saying. All right, it's not so far-fetched. I don't... I mean, I do know why the environmental minister is like, this is fucking slander. And it's like, slander by who? The cruise ship? I guess so. But that's the other thing. Like, the cruise ship, who trusts a fucking cruise ship management to be like, nope, there's never been any rats on this gigantic boat full of feces ever. Never has there ever been any sort of pest problem on this cruise ship. That's something no one believes. So it's like, I don't know. I'd like to side with the birders as a man of bird news myself. But, like, I don't know. It's difficult to know who to trust. I'm leaning towards believing the bird people in Argentina, even though it is Argentina next to a dump. But, I mean, I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough one. All right. So that's good. That's actually some pretty high quality bird news, all things considered. That's the thing about bird news. It's week to week, so sometimes you get some real duds. But that wasn't a dud. That was actually vaguely relevant to actual news. So pretty cool stuff. Nice how that worked out. All right, next up, I want to do a brief recap of the books that I've been reading to read over the past few days. Or no, after the past few, I guess over a month, probably 2 months at this point. I'm sorry to say that really, unless I'm forgetting a book, which is very possible because I haven't been... Okay, here's how I catalog my reading list here. So I have a list of books. I'm constantly adding to it, but I don't record, except through this podcast. I literally don't record the books that I read in any other way. This is actually kind of, this entire show is kind of like the record of my literal bookkeeping, where I record reviews of these books that I read so I know that I read them, which should tell you that I've read at least 35 books over the past year, which is really honestly a poor showing. But I have a full-time job. I got a lot of hobbies. I'm not just reading out here, okay? I'm getting swole. I'm getting fucking, I don't know, ripped. I'm getting educated. I'm not just spending all my time reading all of my books. And also, I tend to be kind of like dual-wielding pretty heavy books a lot. Like, I'll have a fiction book, and then I'll have a nonfiction. And I'll kind of be reading both of those at once. So sometimes I'm spending more time on the nonfiction and also time on YouTube and time on the internet and blah, 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 whatever. But, sometimes it ends up that I only really read like 2 horror anthologies over the course of like 2 months. And that's just kind of what happens, So the 2 that I read was, the first one was a set of Yeah, it was basically an anthology from Paul Tremblay, who's an author that I hold somewhat near and dear to my heart. He's not my favorite horror author ever, but he is a very good writer. I tend to really enjoy kind of the settings and themes of his stories a lot. And I like that he's very versatile in his writing style and his ideas. Reminds me a little bit of like Prime King, where he can just kind of like he can have a bunch of different formats, and also yeah, he's like, I think he's gonna be considered like a modern classic horror master, or master of thrillers and things like that, because he doesn't just do straight up horror all the time. One thing about him, a lot of his, and this kind of irked me early on, even though I tend to like this sort of thing, but he goes really overboard with the whole idea of, and if you're a horror fan, you know this trope where is it a real paranormal phenomenon, or is it all in the character's head? And this really comes up in his novels, like A Head Full of Ghosts is one where it's like a girl whose sister is like, gets an exorcism performed on her, but was she actually possessed, or was she mentally ill and exploited, or was it a little bit of both? You get that sort of thing. Or something about Devil's Rock. I forget the exact title, but it was a lot about that, where it's like, hey, is the curse of the rock real? Is there like some sort of demon or whatever out there, or is it just a bad set of circumstances and kind of scumbags in town doing stuff and using the legend for cover, or, a lot of that sort of thing. But usually it's a little bit more cut and dry in his short stories, just because, he doesn't have, there's not as many pages to work with to get that kind of back and forth going. So usually it's kind of one or the other, where it's either like, oh, it's a pretty realistic thriller, or it's like, yeah, it's pretty straight up horror. It usually tends to still be in a pretty gritty and realistic setting, unless it's like way out there. And so this was, the anthology was called The Beast You Are. And I think overall I really enjoyed most of the stories. Some of his stuff where he gets a little bit more just like, I'm a character and something traumatic happened to me, and and I kind of like blended this much creepier vibe around it, except really the ending scare is that I'm just an asshole. He has a couple of them like that. Like there is literally one. Once again, this sucks. This really sucks to be trying to keep up like this, because it was a library book and I returned it and I didn't take any fucking real notes on it. But there was one story where it was literally just about a kid, or like, I guess maybe an adult, recalling when he was a kid, deciding, but just because he was like bored or whatever, to mess with like the local crazy old man who's just is a really, honestly, just a really innocent guy. His memory is so bad that he like uses chalk to draw behind him so he knows how to get home afterwards. And the kid decides, for whatever fucking reason, just to scrub out this guy's chalk. And the guy doesn't know what to do, and he just starts running in circles. And the kid tries to like fix it, but like the guy gets really confused, and so the kid just runs away. And then like the end of the story is just him just kind of watching in horror, seeing this man confusedly walk up and down the fucking sidewalk, and he's just like, oh God, what have I done? Except it's much more like richly written than that, but that's the entire substance of the story. And it's like, well, shit, that's just, I mean, it's well written, but sometimes it's just like, damn, bleak. And there's no fantastical element for me to go on. And so it's just kind of like it's more like a dark fiction story than anything else. Which is why he's very versatile, because he can do stuff like that, where it's just like literally like something that's almost nothing at all, but it has a deep impact on someone's psyche and sense of self-worth and things like that. Then he can go to like, oh, classic my brother brought home a monster story, except it's also really dark, and it's set in like this really fucked up impoverished family, and but it is kind of like straight almost Stephen King style horror. And so you have ones like that. And then you have this more experimental stuff where it's really out there. And that's where the title story comes in, The Beast You Are. And it's literally like, it's a entirely fantastical world populated by like sapient human-like animals. And it's set in like this village that is like, it has a ritual where it has to sacrifice some of its own to a monster that's out in the woods, and they treat it as like kind of a god, and there's like kind of a cult involved. And then it's like, oh, okay, well that's already kind of strange, because it's just like a random, kind of just this fantasy world where there's animals. But then it becomes like a very I mean, listen, I don't find like political commentary all that cutting anymore, because there's just been so much of it over the past decade. But it was a pretty like close, very, very on the nose allegory for kind of our own current political situation. And then it kind of, it got really into like the bleakness of it. And it's just all just in like this microcosm of just this one town populated by animals, and then in the North Woods there's a monster. But then it just, based on that, with all the different characters, it just kind of extrapolates on that, and it becomes this very interesting allegory for just kind of like the human condition, and like kind of what role and what place do you have in the world, and like that sort of thing. And it was very once again, it's like kind of like I was like annoyed that I was annoyed that I was reading something kind of like weird and experimental. It was also all in verse. So it was like a story that it kind of read like prose, but everything was like broken up into verses, like a poem. And so it was a very bizarre story, but also ended up, I ended up liking it. And I didn't want to like it. I wanted to be like, oh, fuck you pretentious asshole, Paul Tremblay. Your fucking iambic pentameter out here trying to write a political allegory. But it ended up being a really good story. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, even though I didn't want to enjoy it, because, like I said, Paul Tremblay's is it real, is it not type of kind of back and forth bullshit. It annoys me in his novels, but he's a very good short story writer. And on par with the greats, like Ramsey Campbell, and King, and Peter Straub, and all those guys. Sometimes it gets a little Clive Barkery too. He normally doesn't go that gory, but when he does, it's pretty good. Which then brings me to the anthology that I followed up with, that kind of has pushed me out of reading horror for a little bit, and that is Spin a Black Yarn by Josh Malerman. And Josh Malerman, he's a pretty solid author, but he's one that I hold in kind of less regard than John Tremblay or Adam Neville and other authors of the more recent generation. And honestly, I don't even like him as much as Joe Hill, and I think Joe Hill's kind of overrated. Josh Malerman he's famous because he wrote Bird Box. I read Bird Box, and I watched the I don't remember if it was a movie. I think it was a Netflix movie, Bird Box. And I wasn't super impressed. I definitely wasn't impressed with the movie. Definitely couldn't give a fuck. But even the book was kind of like, it's a little dull. I mean, there's only so much you can do with, I can't see. But that's obviously not what it was only about. I did honestly like the the character development of the mother and her children in Bird Box more than probably any of the characters in any of his short stories that I've read, and I've read a few. I read one of his earlier anthologies, Goblin, which is about a town in his fictional universe called Goblin in upstate New York. And I think all his, oh no, it might have been Michigan. I think he sets all of his stories in like an alternative Michigan or something like that. And he has a town called Goblin that has a lot of his more like wacky, crazy stories are set, and then he has Sam Hatton, which is like, I guess, kind of a portmanteau of Sam Hain and Manhattan, I would think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I thought of it some other way, but that's what it sounds like to me. And yeah, and that's supposed to be kind of his more like drier, less like flashy, crazy, fantastical stories. But as far as what I've seen from his short story work, it's all a lot more campy than I tend to enjoy, even when it's like very serious themes, and like kind of more serious characters. Like usually the dialogue is a lot more like not super subtle and like kind of crazy wonky. The writing can still be like pretty intense and interesting. Like he's a good writer. Like I would read chunks of I would read passages and I would be like, oh wow, that's actually very well written imagery. So he definitely, it's not like he doesn't have talent as a writer, but I just don't think that his style is as palatable to me as even Paul Tremblay, who I already kind of I tried to trash, but I couldn't even trash him. So really I shouldn't be trashing Josh Mallerman either, but I don't know. He feels like I think he's around the same age as Paul Tremblay, but it just feels it feels like more like immature. Like it felt like he kind of peaked as far as his writing with Bird Box, although there's definitely, he has other novels out, and I think maybe I'd like his long form stuff better, because I did remember enjoying Bird Box to an extent. I think he has some other novels out, and so I may want to read some of those. But so far his short fiction hasn't totally impressed me. Some of it's pretty good, but none of it stuck with me really in the same way that the stories in The Beast You Are stuck with me. And I read those first. I read those like 2 months ago, and I can still remember a lot of them. Some I don't remember. Some of them are too short, but I even remember the one with the freaking kid and the old chalk man. So like, yeah, it's got to be something. And I mean, there are only 4 stories in Spin a Black Yarn, and I kind of barely remember a lot of them. The last one, Egorov, was I think the best, because it was it was a lot more serious in tone. It had its weirder elements in it, but overall it was kind of this like a kind of more of a straightforward revenge story with like an interesting twist. Unfortunately, it's still set in a fucking city called Sam Hatton, which is like still fucking annoying to me. Like I think the naming conventions are fucking dumb. I don't like the names of his settings, but that's not really a super valid critique of his writing. So I have to say it was like okay. A lot of it was less memorable than Paul Tremblay, but Paul Tremblay, I think, is like people are gonna look back on him and they're gonna be like, yeah, he was one of the best, especially of the early new millennium era. Anyway, okay, let's keep going. This is supposed to be rapid fire. I kind of caught myself reminiscing out here about my books. Let's get into. Okay, let's talk about music real quick. Or actually, no. What about movies? What movies have I watched recently? Shit, I don't even remember. I watched Spotlight. Spotlight, not a fun late night romp. I'll tell you that much. It's pretty sad because it's like, it's supposed to be kind of triumphant, where it's like, yes, journalism won. They exposed the Catholic priests molesting kids in Boston. But it's like But then like the after credits message is literally like, oh, the main priest, like the high the bishop involved, he got the punishment of being moved to Rome. And it's like, okay, that's not even a fucking punishment. You didn't even go to jail. But it was framed as like, oh wow, this is a huge fucking win. And because I guess they got more money out of it for the victims, and I guess they got the victim stories told, which is good. But still, it didn't sit right with me because, spoiler alert, nothing fucking happened to those priests. So, whatever. Spotlight, good movie, not a feel-good movie. Anything else? I don't even remember. Yeah, I haven't been watching a lot of movies. I've been watching a lot of TV. I've been watching Entourage. Entourage is funny. I didn't know until I started watching and looking into it that it's based off of Mark Wahlberg's career, which is like, okay, whatever. Mark Wahlberg, he's sort of funny, but he pretends to be self-aware enough where he kind of makes his whole persona work, but I don't know. I just can't imagine that any people hanging out with fucking Marky Mark were like that chill, you know? You get kind of a more violent vibe from Marky Mark, especially in the time frame that they were talking about. Like the show is set in where the show was made in like 2004, and it was supposed to be about when Mark was an up and comer, and he was an up and comer in like the late 90s. Or like mid to late 90s. And I'm pretty sure he still had an assault charge in the mid 90s. So it's not like he's not like this fresh, clean cut movie star like Vince is in the show. Vince being like the main kind of like himbo actor guy who's his entourage is the entourage and entourage. All right. And but I don't think Mark Wahlberg resembles Vince in personality or demeanor very much at all. I mean, they both have dark hair, I guess, and they both have like a goofy ass fucking Boston relative that they go back to, or multiple. But yeah, I don't think it really follows it that well, but it's still a good show. So it doesn't really matter about the veracity of Mark Wahlberg's claims of being a fun, good-looking guy who the ladies loved. Who also may or may not have blinded a Vietnamese man. I have seen different sources on that, depending on what you look for. One article claimed the Vietnamese man had lost his eye fighting for the U.S. in the Vietnam War. And the other one said maybe Mark did it. Or no, Mark thought he did it. Mark thought he took out the guy's eye with a punch. That's how fucking, like, I don't know. It's kind of fucked in the head. You should have been like, no, he said he lost it in the war. But he was like, no, I'm pretty sure I took out that guy's eye with my fist. And I would have brought the plane down with my fist, too, on that fateful day. Anyway, I also have been watching, I don't know, I've been picking away at some other stuff. A little bit of Samurai Jack. You know, that's same old, same old. Still a good cartoon. And yeah, not really a lot else. Oh, Ted, the TV show. That's a funny show. Still got Seth MacFarlane. Still got it. Still got still does the Boston voice. Another vaguely Mark Wahlberg related production as well. I think that I guess I've been watching a lot of Mark Wahlberg content. I didn't realize it. Mostly because it's shows that are vaguely related to Mark Wahlberg, but don't actually have him in it. So I'm not like repulsed by his bad acting or phoning it in. He can be a good actor, but like he tends to phone it in a lot. But yeah, Seth MacFarlane's funny. The entire cast is great on that show, which is something that I normally don't run into, even in like, you know, in other live action comedies. But like the cast of the entire family is great. Some of the writing's kind of like ham-fisted, but that's the MacFarlane style, you know. You like it's almost like watching like a live action Family Guy, but without the cutaway gags. And it just kind of stays as like its own continuous story. But yeah, I like it a lot. It's a good show. What?
If I ordered chicken dumplings, would you eat any?
Question from the audience. If I ordered chicken dumplings, would you eat any? The answer is I don't know. Fuck, maybe. Music. We got to do music. All right. Let's take a look at my Spotify playlist. We're going to try and run through these, and we're going to see if I can remember the genre of each of these groups, bands, or musicians that I pull up here. Let me get out of my podcast list. We don't need to go over that at all, ever, for any reason. I'm going to go to... Yeah, let's just go to my liked songs. That's where everything ends up. So, we'll see if, let's see if we can go in, like, kind of, chronological order. That's the one. Okay, what do we got? Okay, all right. Figured it out because I know I left off of like the Beach Boys last time, and so yeah, leaving off with the Beach Boys. I've been listening to Fugazi, which are like they're like a punk / alternative group. Very famous. You know, if you know music a lot, you know who Fugazi is. But they're like a punk band / post-hardcore. They're very good. They have a lot of range. You know, their early stuff was a lot more hardcore punk, and then it kind of turned to more like alternative and even kind of jazzy and melodic. It's very interesting. I got Transmission by Joy Division. If you don't know Joy Division, you're a fucking poser. Yeah, Joy Division, alternative. They're like the quintessential alternative. They're like post-punk type of thing, where it's like they're influenced a bit by punk, but they have the synthesizers. They have kind of the muted guitar. He's the guy who sounds like this. And the feeling. Is that guy. Shit, I should actually remember his name because I read up on the lead vocalist. He's a very interesting musician because he's basically like a kind of a literary prodigy. Like he was a very voracious reader, and he wrote very interesting lyrics with a lot of literary allusions and historical allusions. But he also had a lot of mental problems and inner darkness, and so he basically got married by like age 20. And then like had a career in one of the biggest alternative groups of all time, and then committed suicide at age 23. And he had like these seizures his whole life, and he would get all this like strange inspiration, and he's just a very fascinating character. The guy from Joy Division. Let me pull up the name here just because I wanna say it on the podcast, even though anyone who knows Joy Division should know the name of the guy. But it's what was it? Ian Curtis. Yeah, Ian Curtis. Very fascinating dude. Died way too young. They only put out like 2 real albums, and then like the EP, which is where Transmission comes from. Okay, this was not a fucking rapid fire. Let's go. Rapid fire. Morphine, alternative. We already talked about Morphine. They're kind of like jazzy alternative. Ez the Kid, white rapper from Liverpool. Racecourse, they're like a kind of, they're like a modern indie alternative, kind of like, I don't think they're shoegaze. I think they're more just kind of like dream pop rock type of thing, but with a little bit of like emo math rock style guitar. It's pretty cool. Earl Sweatshirt, alternative hip hop. Vince Staples, also kind of alternative hip hop. Hive is a kick-ass song, very low down and grimy and cool. Flying Lotus, famous producer / rapper / musician / composer. He makes a lot of like very kind of complex jazzy instrumentals, and he collaborates with a lot of other rappers, but this is just a song by him called Captain Colonel. It was on a jazz playlist. Another one from the jazz playlist is Tigran Hamasyan. And it was a song Prelude for All Seekers, which was very cool. It's kind of piano based jazz, but almost has some like prog metal elements, but it's all like it's all almost all piano and like I think maybe some horns, but I think it's mostly piano and bass and drums. Wash You Away is another one from jazz playlist by Destin Conrad. And some other people, and it's kind of cool because it's like, yeah, alternative hip hop and jazz mixed together. Very cool. Mac DeMarco, been listening to Chamber of Reflection. Everyone knows that one. It's like bum 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 bum. You know that one. I just got a weird look. That's how the song goes. Bing bum bum. You know, that shit. The Strokes. We got Flea. The Strokes. Strokes. Turn of the century. Freaking New York. What is it? Indie sleaze shit. Yeah. Flea. He's the bassist from the Chili Peppers, but he has a jazz career now. And he did a song with Nick Cave, who's a pretty cool vocalist. Matthew Halsall, he's another jazz guy. Fog Lake, I've listened to a bunch of Fog Lake recently. He's like kind of a drone / slowcore / sadcore guy who makes stuff that's a little bit more like pop rock, kind of dream pop type of thing, but he has origins in drone music, so just a lot of synth, some guitar. He plays like all the instruments. It's pretty cool. Slightly Stupid, which I believe was like I think they were from like the 90s. They're like just a kind of a rock pop band from around then. Don't know if I'm remembering it. Tame Impala, I started putting some Tame Impala as part of my 2016 kick. I've been putting Tame Impala down there. Young Thug, rapper. I have that song Digits where it sounds like he's saying horses don't stop, they keep going. But he's actually saying hustlers don't stop, they keep going. But all the reels on Instagram and on TikTok have like just edits of just like horses fucking running around to the song. It's pretty cool. Insect Warfare, they're like this is all part of my metal and like grindcore. So Insect Warfare is one. Mongrel is a good one. Their song Off the Leash, they're pretty heavy. Behemoth is a classic kind of black metal, kind of symphonic metal now, but they're cool. They got some good songs. And then Akon, he's pop, hip hop. Never really mattered that much to me. Yeah, that's him, along with a guy named Simeon, which is a odd name, but is what it is. We have A Picture of Her, which I believe is like I don't know. It's more alternative indie, probably more dream pop, dream rock type of thing. Dutch Interior, they have a song called Be Intense, which is a very kind of more dream pop, dream rock, kind of similar to Whitney, another band I've talked about. And then there's Tapir, however you pronounce the animal, the South American pig-like animal. But it's that word with an exclamation part. And they have a song Gymnopedy, but they're a very interesting, like kind of art rock, a little bit dreamlike, but just they use a lot of different instruments, all very kind of experimental, but very good. Pretty powerful lyrics, I think, at least, with kind of a lot of different ways to interpret them. And then there's Codeine, which is like kind of more sadcore-ish. Isis is a lot more like a emo with a little bit of like screamo in it. It's literally just a band called Isis. Don't know what to tell you there. Frail Body, another emo screamo type of thing. They're like okay. I don't know if I don't love emo in general, but sometimes the instrumentals kind of push me over the top even when the vocals are lacking. Knocked Loose collaborated with Denzel Curry for a song called Hive Mind, which was like interesting. It's not exactly my cup of tea, but Denzel Curry likes dabbling in metal every once in a while, so that's pretty cool for him. I had one Kanye song on here. I don't think I have it in my actual circulation, but, you know, Kanye's Kanye. Feeling Blue is another. They're kind of more like dream shoegaze alternative type of thing. Song Aquamarine by Danger Mouse, Black Thought, and Michael Kitchen. I don't know, but it's a pretty cool like kind of alternative hip hop. And the song I was actually trying to find called Aquamarine was by Ben Watt, he's known as, I think most famously as a DJ, but he's also kind of a singer, songwriter, experimental guitarist, and so he kind of has that like, it's like kind of early British alternative, but also a little bit of folk rocky a little bit. He used a lot of reverb in this song Aquamarine. There's also Eyehategod, Eiefuawn. They're another alternative kind of dream pop type of thing, maybe emo-ish. Oh no. Something like that. Then there's the song Safety by Football, etc., which I think I seem to kind of equate them a little bit with American football because it is a little math rocky, but I remember the vocals being very good with Football, etc. So they're similar to that. There's a Spirit Blue, which they're like they're almost kind of like a drone, like ambient rock type of thing, maybe even like kind of post rock a little bit. All very kind of quiet, subtle stuff. There's You'll Never Get to Heaven, which I think is like kind of emo-ish, like generally alternative. They're a little bit tougher to figure out. There is a Theater. They have a song called The Fall that I thought was kind of good, but they're almost like a kind of a not power metal, but what's the like metalcore-ish? Yeah, metalcore, but with mostly clean vocals. So I might get the genre wrong a little bit, but it's kind of like some type of core. Some type of core going on a little bit. Yeah, a little bit like, what is it? Sleep Token. Yeah, kind of Sleep Token-y. Arctic Monkeys. Everyone knows who the Arctic Monkeys are. Another classic alternative band of the early 2000s. But I'm listening to some of the early stuff, so it's a little bit more punky. The White Stripes, experimental. Jack White doing his thing. Catch Hell Blues. He uses a lot of different instruments. It's cool stuff. More White Stripes. Temples. I don't remember who Temples is at all. Damn, sorry Temples, but they were good. They have a song called Jetstream Heart. Eyehategod, sludge metal. The song from back in the day called New Orleans is the New Vietnam, which is wild. Added a little bit of Snoop Dogg in there. Everyone knows Snoop Dogg. More Denzel Curry, along with a guy named Slow Tie. I don't know who the fuck Slow Tie is, but he's another rapper. He seemed good, along with Denzel Curry. It was off one of Denzel's earlier albums. Cave Mode. They're kind of like a grindcore. Heavy band. Kind of remind me of Primitive Man a little bit, but yeah, they're like pretty heavy, and it's kind of repetitive, very repetitive riff for the most part. There's another one, Bodybox. They had a song called Leech, and I more like their aesthetic rather than kind of what they are. They're like kind of a post I don't know. They're like kind of a metalcore-y, like grindcore, like definitely more grindcore type as well. In between that and Phyllomedusa, I had the Mamas and the Papas just because I wanted to get that downloaded on there. California Dreamin'. Phyllomedusa, though, is another kind of grindcore, sludgecore. It's kind of sludge metal-y, but like just very heavy. I guess artist. It is kind of just one guy who just he kind of is. He uses guitars, drums, drum machines, beats. He makes either like metal, or he'll make like fucked up industrial noise type of shit. And other times he'll be doing metal, but the vocals will be like frog noises. It's a very frog themed artist, Phyllomedusa. And then there was Miserlou by Dick Dale. It's like that one, that's pretty cool. Lush is another one. They're another more, once again, kind of more dream pop, alternative rock, that sort of thing. Narrowhead with the song Necrosis, I think, was like they're kind of more like, almost a little bit more like kind of stonery, I think. I don't remember exactly. I think maybe they were kind of more shoegaze. I can't remember. Kind of like Alcest, and they had a song Sapphire, but I don't remember exactly how it goes, and I don't want to play it right now. Then there is this band. Oh, fuck. I don't remember what it was called. Their name is in Chinese, or in Mandarin specifically. But they're like kind of a shoegazy, atmospheric band, and they had a album called California Nebula, and they have one song on there that's also in Chinese, and the title's in Chinese, but the album's called California Nebula. It's very cool. They have other songs called Leave Now, Breathe Now, Can You Hear the Whistle Blow, and Meadow, which were also very good, but very different than the earlier album California Nebula, which was definitely a lot more like kind of stoner shoegaze type of thing. Okay, Everything But the Girl and Ben Watt. Okay, this is like back when Ben Watt was doing more DJing stuff. Corravado is like a club classic, I guess. More Ben Watt. Wage War, I believe, is like, they're more like a punk rock type of thing. Then there's the Stranglers, one of my kind of favorite post-punk bands from the 70s and 80s. They had a song called Golden Brown that was a hit. You've probably heard slowed down versions of it on TikTok for like bullshit that's supposed to be dramatic. But they had a lot more kind of like punk rocky type of songs too. But they're very, very good musicians. They have a great bassist, great guitarist, great keyboards. Their drummer, I found out, was a guy named he had like a very regular name. He literally was like just kind of a successful shipping guy, but then he decided to get back into drumming after in like his 40s to start this band in the 1970s, and he started with all these like younger dudes, and he went by the stage name Jet Black. But it was because he had a really goofy, like, basic British, like Ben Tund or something like that. Like, literally just some fucking goofy ass name like that. And he died pretty recently. He was a lot older than the rest of the band, but overall, the Stranglers, very cool. MJ Lenderman is another one who's he's pretty cool. I believe I mentioned him before. He's definitely kind of like, almost like, he blends a lot of stuff together. He uses like kind of some like country elements, but is also very much like uses a lot of pedals and stuff, so kind of shoegazy as well. Loves guitar, and overall pretty great. Switch Angel, that's more trance, and it was one that I heard on like Instagram or something, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool song. They had it's the track is In the Beginning There Was Trance. Nihilist is like a old like kind of hardcore band, I believe. Like they're kind of like death metal / like kind of hardcore punk, sort of mix like that. And they're called Nihilist. They have songs like Revel in Flesh and Sentenced to Death that were from like the 80s, but they've put out some albums and things recently and have been sort of doing a little tour. American Football had a new album out. Math rock, Midwest emo, that sort of thing. A lot of the other bands I talked about previously were probably also Midwest emo, the ones that I didn't remember. Villager. That's another one that's like alternative. Could be Midwest emo. I don't know. Nothing. That's another band. The song called Fever Queen. Don't fucking remember that one at all. Need to figure out what it sounds like. Chief Keef. He came up. He's a trap. He's not a trap. That's kind of an outdated term. My apology. He does trap music. It's about O Block. And he has some good songs. DIIV. It makes me sing like an idiot, but they have a song called Between Tides. I don't remember why it was good or what genre it was. Failure. Failure is like they were like kind of a alternative rock, grungy, sort of metal, sort of stonerish type of thing. They had a lot of songs that were kind of related to space and stuff, and also being a loser. But they put out a new album, and they had Haley Reid from Paramore featuring on one of the songs, and seems like a pretty good album overall. We have Have a Nice Life, which is definitely like sadcore, fucking doom, gloom core, very like kind of nihilism type band where they're talking a lot about like, oh, what if life is meaningless, and what if I'm really fucking sad all the time? And a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm really fucking sad all the time too. Glenwunner, that's a funny one. They have a song. He's like a rapper. He basically just makes raps about Pokemon. He has one called Blastoise. It goes, Big Man Blastoise, Big Man Blastoise. It's pretty funny. People have done like animations for it on the internet, and it's pretty dope. And then we have Tiger's Jaw, and they're like kind of an alternative, sort of maybe emo-y, but seem more like kind of a more traditional like revivalist rock band. Or possibly like post-punk, but they did a cover of some Title Fight songs, Safe in Your Skin and Where Am I? Yeah, and then there's another one, A Long Winter. No idea where that's from. Probably one that I got from the internet. And then the Velveteers, which they're just kind of like a rock slash punk band. They're very, very recent. I saw them they had like an ad on Instagram, and I pulled that and was like, hey, I'll add those motherfuckers to my playlist. All right, and that's my fucking playlist so far. That took like 20 minutes. I'm going to try and have as many of the I'll have like some of the more prominent recommendations I actually know something about. I'll have those in the description for this video. A lot of this shit is probably going to get cut down quite a bit. Don't know how entertaining it's going to be. Don't know when I have a fucking guest next. Don't even know when the next episode's coming out. But we're going to get back on fucking track, I tell you that much. Mark my words, OTNT, on to the next thing, will return. And it will return with some fucking force. Alright, motherfuckers? We're going to have guests eventually. At some point. Please, God, motherfucker. Not you, God. No, you're not a motherfucker. Although, no, Mary wasn't a mother yet. Yeah, that's not how the story went. Okay, good. Yep, God is not a motherfucker. I just want to say that for all the Catholics and Presbyterians in the audience, not the Baptists or the evangelists. You guys are dicks. Lutherans are out too. You guys are fucking weird. And the Pentecostals. And you know what? Fuck the Quakers too. Fuck your oats. Anyway, you can check out more of the podcast and more of my ramblings at OTNT Podcast on Blue Sky, on Mastodon, on YouTube, and on Instagram. Maybe I'll have a Twitter at some point, or maybe I'll be able to keep outlasting Twitter. And maybe Blue Sky is going to take off so fucking much, it's going to make your asshole spin. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But I know what is going to happen. There's always going to be bird news unless we kill all the birds, which I hope we don't. There's always going to be more shit that I read or watched that I want to complain about a little bit. Hopefully, I'd like to go maybe a little bit more in depth on some of the authors that I talk about, but that might be for a different non-variety show that I'll have in the future. When I really shift into content, when I turn fucking 30 or whatever the fuck. Just imagine taking off at age 30. That'd be pretty cool. It's not out of the question, but Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that, Chief. I don't know about that shit. Anyway, thank you for watching. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.